Thank you all so much for coming through. We want to keep this short and sharp. On behalf of the Kathrada Foundation, let me welcome all of you here. This event is supported by OUTA, Corruption Watch, Defend Our Democracy, and it takes place on Freedom Day. Now, some people have asked why. Why are we here on Freedom Day? We're here today because 29 years ago, some of us who were younger at the time got up this morning. We were part of getting millions of South Africans to go and vote for the first time. And they voted for the first time because we wanted to change. We believed in change. We had a dream of a better South Africa. Hundreds, if not thousands, went to jail and died for the right to vote and for the right to have a South Africa where everybody had dignity and had basic freedoms. Today, many of those freedoms have been eroded. And they've been eroded because of corruption, because of state capture, and because of a state that is just about falling apart. A major part of why we are where we are today is because of, not only because, but in a big way, because of the corrupt work done by this Gupta family. And this family managed in a very sophisticated way to corrupt our politics, to corrupt our leaders. And their style of corruption today has spread to almost every part of government, from local to national, which is why the country is in the mess that it is. It is corrupt to the core, partly because of what people have learned from the Guptas, but that style of corrupting politicians has now gone to every locality across the country. Many of you would have read about the school feeding scheme in KZN. It's the same thing. Why our roads are in the state that they are is because money is going elsewhere. So this family escaped just before they were about to be served with arrest warrants. They knew they were going to be arrested, ended up in Dubai. It took a long while for this government to sign the extradition treaties and to get Interpol to place them on a red notice. They were then arrested. We are told that they were in jail, but we're not too sure. And a few months ago, they were released. The case was dropped. They were allowed to go free. Now, why we are here is that the United Arab Emirates conducted the trial, we are told, in secret. They did not inform the South African government that the Guptas were going to be released. They told the South African government 6 to 7 weeks later. And by the time that our government found out, they had to come to this place here to get the communication from the UAE government. Now, it's unheard of that a government must come to the embassy here to come and collect vital correspondence. Diplomatic decency would have said that the UAE government should have notified the South African government well in advance. But the letter they gave we are told, by the Department of Justice was in Arabic. So they had to spend the whole night now translating this. And at the end of it, discovered that the content was that the Guptas have been let free. They have left Dubai. They have gone to seek asylum in a place called Vanuatu, a little island. that is facing extinction because of climate change. They've also applied for asylum or refugee status in the Central African Republic, as well as the Cameroons. So it's going to be very hard to restart the case, but restart the case is something that the South African government must do. And we want to hand over, or we will leave something here for the embassy and for the government of Dubai, which is what the South African government should have done, was to have called the ambassador in, to have given him what is called a demarche, which is really a note that says that the South African government is not happy with what has happened in Dubai. Our government has refused to do that for whatever reason, and therefore today we are doing what the South African government should have done, is a note to express our displeasure with what has happened in Dubai. So I'm going to ask very quickly for short messages from somebody from OUTA, one of our partners here today. A short message from OUTA. Is anybody coming through? No? Good.
Good morning, everyone. Firstly, I'd just like to say thank you very, very much for joining us today and showing your support for this protest. We're really, really hoping that the embassy will listen to us and that the government of Dubai will do what they should have done. I feel like it's almost silly to say that we're a little bit disappointed with the outcome, especially considering, what is one of the first in our start of the state capture journey and the prosecutions. What we were hoping was going to be a journey where we could get some justice, where we could see some sort of remedial actions being taken, people being held accountable, because as you know, without holding people to account, there can be no justice. So looking forward to today, really, really hoping that anybody that side is listening to us. Maybe they're looking through the windows somewhere. Please take this seriously. Our country is in dire straits. We need every single small win that we can. And if we can win even one step at a time, then we can get our beautiful country back to the state that it needs to be in. Please don't forget to vote. Now that I have the mic, let me just say that. Every single one of us has an opportunity and has the power and has the responsibility to exercise your right to vote. That is your key to changing the country. So please do. And let's hope today has a positive outcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, from Defend Our Democracy, Faisal, Zakira, who's coming through? Zakira?
So there's really three things that from Defend Our Democracy we want to communicate here today. One is to the government of the UAE. We want to know from you if it's more important for you to see justice or for you to protect perhaps those who are bringing dirty money into your country. Because that goes to the crux of it. The ruler of the UAE was in South Africa and he came to one of the poorest provinces in our country, the Eastern Cape. He came with his millions to build a new runway to come into this country. But we hope that he would have taken the time to see the levels of poverty in this country and to perhaps get an understanding of why justice and accountability is important here. Because the levels of poverty that we're seeing in our country, the issues of collapse, the crisis on different fronts, is precisely because the likes of the Guptas have been allowed to get away. And we hope that the UAE understands this linkage between poverty in this country, between the issue of justice, accountability, and the need to bring these people back to the country to face accountability and justice here. Our second message is to the South African government, and we want to reflect what we put out recently in a statement on the Nulani case. Do your work. We're tired of the pitiful excuses that you come forward with about these cases related to state capture. This Nulani case was one of the most important state capture cases, being one of the first to be enrolled, and you lost it. It was a case of just over 29 million rand, and in the scope of the bigger picture, the billions that have been lost due to state capture, it wasn't a big amount, but it was an important case. And we think that the South African government, needs to be held accountable for this loss. The third message is to the South African public. And I've been to some, gatherings, family gatherings, and people say, why don't you just let it go? It's a closed chapter. Let state capture go. Let the Guptas go and we can start afresh. But the thing is that this book called State Capture, this chapter, hasn't ended. It continues in different forms. It's morphed into our municipalities and into our provinces. There are new characters that are playing out the story called State Capture. And to the South African public, we want to say, and to the South African government and to the UAE government as well, that in this book called State Capture, the key villains are the Guptas, and it can't be that they get away without facing accountability. I don't think anyone would accept a story with that kind of ending. Thanks.
Any young person wants to come up and say a few words? No? Cincy, that baby of yours doesn't want to say a few words? Yeah? Let us conclude with, this is what we call the People's Demarche, that we will hand over a copy to the staff here of the embassy. On Freedom Day 2023, this People's Demarche is served on the government of the UAE for failing to comply with basic international relations protocols. We, the people gathered here, do this because the South African government has not done so on our behalf. We cannot accept that the government and the courts of the UAE tried the Guptas in secret, let them free on dubious grounds, failed to notify the South African government of this development in advance, only notified the South African authorities almost 6 weeks after the Guptas were let free, failed to deliver this information directly to the South African authorities, and made them come to fetch it late in the evening from the UAE embassy, failed to provide this in a South African language. The actions of the UAE government have resulted in people implicated in state capture in South Africa being let free. They are now free to roam the world and continue what they started here in other parts of the world. This is the family that has been sanctioned by the USA and UK governments. Their bank accounts were closed in South Africa, and they need to account for the devastation that they have caused to South Africa. The actions of the UAE government have made the task of bringing them to account for their actions more difficult than ever before. It is, however, not too late for the UAE government to show some remorse for its actions. It can immediately apologize for its actions, commit to working with the South African government and international agencies to finding and apprehending the Guptas, close all businesses that are owned and operated by the Guptas in the UAE, freezing Gupta accounts and collaborating with South African enforcement agencies in the provision of information of Gupta accounts and transactions. The above are the least we expect the UAE to consider if it wants to demonstrate any goodwill to the people of South Africa as they struggle for freedom from corruption, capture and state failure, all of which are in no small part due to the plundering corruption of the Gupta family and their many associates, issued by the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. We will hand this over to the security, but we will also tomorrow email this directly to the ambassador here and to other representatives of the UAE government. Mr. Bloom, welcome. Thank you. We're just about finishing. I'm not sure if you want to just say a few words in closing. Member of Parliament.
Good morning, everybody. I'm very much sorry to be late, but it's only one word. We want these criminals back into South Africa. No apology. We want them back. We are sitting with load shedding because of them. We are struggling. There's unemployment because of them. We want them back, and we want them back today. These people must not shield criminals. They must bring them back. But I am very much happy that you, all of you, are not getting tired. We will not get tired up until they come back to pay for their sins. Thank you very much.
On that note, I want to thank all of you for your time, for coming out here on Freedom Day, and I hope that as we leave from here and you go back to your organizations and your areas, you take forward this message, because we intend to ensure that the campaign to find and bring back the Guptas is scaled up. We previously had an international campaign which we will kickstart towards the end of May, bring together all the international partners and many others to work towards finding these Guptas and putting pressure on the South African government to reinstate the charges, to work with Interpol to get that red notice reissued, because only when the South African government does what it needs to do can the rest of the world do what they have to do. So thank you very much for your presence here.